Fucking snorted, dude. So, is enlightenment defined by like the falling away of the person? We have the talk of the falling away of the separate self, you know, that the separate self just falls away and preferences just fall away or they don't. But it almost seems like when you watch non-duality videos, we all look like we have relative amnesia, right? Like we look and I'm not saying that that doesn't really seem to happen here, because it definitely does, and it doesn't. Nothing's really happening. There is a transparency to the gaze and the presence and whatever. There appears to be that, but does it mean that is this defined by the falling away of the separate self, of the ego, of the character, of preferences, of tendencies, of likes and dislikes, of maybe a personal boundary just because there's a realization that it's not real and that everything's ultimately impersonal? No. And yes. Everything is truly yes and no, happening simultaneously and not at all. So everything is existing and not existing simultaneously and not. So there's never a straight answer. There's never a straight answer. And what I could say is I think sometimes the stuff looks far from somebody else because there's a way the speech changes when people are making non-duality videos, because it's almost like it's been neutralized. There's a neutrality to everything. So everything's been neutralized and, you know, the speech just kind of comes up like that. But the truth is, this isn't defined by the apparent character falling away, even though that's what's described. Kind of. It's not a falling away, it's a recognition that that's not, it doesn't hold weight. Okay, it doesn't hold weight. So all of this is play. The apparent character is play. You don't wake up and look in the mirror and look at, you know, you don't see a ghost of like nothing, you know. It can kind of feel like that. Sometimes it feels trippy for people to look in the mirror, but it's not like I wake up and, you know, I was able to define myself as somebody with like brown hair and fucking acne and and brown eyes and a round face or whatever, and now I wake up and it's just there's nothing there. You know, there's kind of a knowing or whatever sense that nothing's there now, and that it's just kind of like a magic trick, but the magic trick is still appearing. Undoubtedly, it's like, yeah, so the magic trick is still appearing undoubtedly. This character, that's the thing, the character, within the character story, it doesn't accept everything and reject nothing. This accepts everything and rejects nothing, okay? What's already happening accepts everything and rejects nothing, and that is enlightenment. That is I am that I am. That is the case already. But within this story, it can appear like that, where I become more open and accepting. But this apparent character is already defined by borders, so the borders don't go away, the descriptions don't go away, the preferences don't go away, things I hate and maybe hate's a strong word now, but dislike and don't prefer don't go away, and the things that I do like and prefer don't go away. Like, I prefer to wear makeup, and I would prefer not to have an acne right now. You guys know how to think about my skin. It's still a part of this. That's the thing. That is still a part of this. So to say that enlightenment is defined by the separate self just falling away and it's not there anymore, and you have this relative amnesia where you're in this daze all the time, it can look like that. I'm not saying it doesn't look like that here sometimes. But what I'm saying is that this is not and has never been separate from the apparent character and the illusion. What this is just a recognition of what it is. Nothing more and nothing less. It is a recognition. It is something that just became obvious, and things either change or they don't. And there's really nothing wrong with the apparent character. There's really nothing wrong with the apparent character, the likes and the dislikes, and whatever. And the thing is that this stuff can be turned conceptual. It could be turned conceptual where you're like, well, then nothing is everything. I shouldn't have a problem with anything. Yeah. There's even such thing as resistance within the character. So for me, you know, there's still I don't want to deal with certain people on a personal level. Impersonal level, this accepts everything, rejects nothing, and there's nothing wrong with anything. It's already perfect. On a personal level, it's like, some people's shit, I don't want to deal with it still. I don't want to be around it, so I'm just not. It just doesn't happen or whatever. And that's still okay. That's not separate from this. It'll never be separate from it. It's stupid to think that this apparent character thinks that it's stupid for that to be separate from that or whatever. Or that this has to look like anything, you know. This already looks like everything. It doesn't have to look like a certain thing, like me talking like whatever, or me abstaining from using the word fuck, because I will use the word fuck if I want to. Or from wearing hats, because this apparent character cares about looking like a fetus as long as it can. So trying to stay out of the sun. There is care about that, even though ultimately I know that shit, not I, but it is known or whatever by no one that there's really nothing to care about, that this is just what it is. So honestly, who gives a shit? Like, who gives a shit what it's supposed to look like? And who is anybody to say that this is the apparent character, your apparent character too, your radical truth, whatever that is. And I'll tell you, like, listen, I'll tell you, if you want a how I got here story, which some people at this point are like, gonna be like, I don't care about accrediting myself or discrediting myself. Like, it's kind of just, this is just what's happening. So to be honest, like, one thing that there was twin flame stuff, like I've talked about that, and then there was like kind of a radical fuck you to everything, because this character was always playing very playing very nice, playing very like agreeable to try to do whatever, and it was almost suppressing my actual truths, because if I had truths or wants or desires or preferences that went against the grain and caused some disagreeability or some friction between me and other characters, there was a suppression of that. So honestly, one thing that seems in hindsight like it got me here, which again, you guys know the whole, it's really annoying actually. It's really annoying. I know it is, to be like, nothing really got me here, piece of shit, whatever. There was a radical truth. There was a radical, I don't give a shit, fuck you, like, I'm gonna say whatever I want. And it was almost like throwing off it was like taking off a big layer, a big chunk of masks. This is all still just masks. I am just a stack of masks. I am that I am. But that radical fuck you, radically getting into what the character is, radical identity in a way. Even though it sounds so contradictory, because this is like saying, oh no, separate identity exists, and separate identity is the forbidden fruit, and separate identity is hell. Well, it was honestly like going as deep into hell as I can. Or instead of, someone's gonna take this whatever way, especially because I'm wearing a demon shirt, right? Who gives a shit? It was almost like, even hell, we're making hell bad. This is inescapable too. Hell can be fun. Hell can be fun if you know that it's just a dream. It's a lot of fun when you know that it's just a dream and it doesn't really matter. So before the shift, whatever you want to call it, shift happened very suddenly, like in the woods, like boom, by a church. Isn't that funny? But hell can be fun if you know it's just a bad dream and you know it's not real. And you know that the joke is that the identity, whether it's a good identity or it's an identity that thinks it doesn't identify with being an identity, blah, 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 is already doomed to it. Hopeless message, but not really. The message sounds hopeless because you really think, like, I think people think they have that relative amnesia, and that I think the nothingness scares people. But you really don't have nothingness without everythingness and whatever. Like, it all just doesn't matter. It just scratches itself and, you know, falls on itself. And even here, there was a sense that I have to lose everything and kind of like the self has to die. And there was a fear and anxiety and like a dark night of the soul or whatever. Just to come back and be like, oh, well, ultimately, like, if none of what I thought I had to lose, including, you know, the sense of a self, was separate ever from this. This is just recognition. And it seems, in hindsight, that certain things did have to happen to recognize and be recognized by no one. That this is nothing. Let us just play. So yeah, the misconception that this the character might never like gets I don't know, there's really not anger that comes up or like suffering that comes up, but I mean maybe it could, I don't know. I don't know anything. It just doesn't really seem to come up, but like and there's a lot more flow. So there's less with the recognition, there's a lot less resistance to things naturally, kind of, because a lot of things do seem to just fall away. But even if they didn't, and even if they aren't in your case, it doesn't mean that this is any less already this. It doesn't mean that. Yeah, if a separate self seems to appear, seems to be being experienced, or even being an experience, or woo woo woo, I know I said none of that exists. If that's kind of what comes up, that's just the scene playing out too. This includes everything. So there's a sense of integration instead of this is enlightenment or whatever, it's defined by nothing. This is integrated, so it's just, if it happens, it happens, and there's not really as resistance to it as much. Like, there can be resistance. There can be resistance too if it comes up. Like, it is what it is. But I mean, it's less likely to come up. It doesn't seem to come up nearly as often as it used to. And none of that even matters. If it did, it doesn't matter. And even if it did and I was living in resistance, this isn't any less this already. Because enlightenment was never mine. It was never mine to have. It was never mine to be noticed. So whether there's resistance and no recognition, no, lots of resistance, I don't care, whatever, big word salad. This is still this independent of whatever is happening here. Anything could happen right here. I don't know. I don't even feel like thinking of something. Anything could happen right here. But this is exactly what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. And this is already there's no exclusion. And it's not because I'm sitting in, in nature or whatever, like outside. Sorry, it's gonna get loud. There's just there's a natural preference for this character to go sit down somewhere outside and be around green scene and like sit like that and like something about the trees. Everything looks the same to me, but not like super defined. It doesn't matter. So even that's like a preference. And none of it really matters. Like, you thinking that you're not on the other side of this because you're watching this or you're trying to get it. There's been people like commenting on my stuff saying like they're jealous, and it's like I don't know how to respond because I'm like, of what? Of what? You're right here. You're no different. Like, you are me. I am you. There's no me and you. This is just one organism playing and pretending like it's whatever scene is happening. Even the separate character, apparently. Which is cool, because going through Dark Night of the Soul, whatever, like, this is just stories, whatever, you guys know the whole annoying rundown. It's just stories, nothing's really happening and nobody exists, whatever. Going through Dark Night of the Soul, that was like so anxious because I was like, oh my god, nothing, I have no family, like whatever. And it was kind of just hitting me, and it was quick, it's like quick because then you're like, nobody's really here to care. But then it's like amazement because it's like it's still playing out, and the preference, some stuff is really still there, or sometimes it's not. It just, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know anything. That's like, I don't know anything. This isn't mine to claim. It's just a recognition, and there's just the making of these videos. Just, I get, there's a personal like wanting to share and document and whatever, because this is how it happened for me. It didn't happen for me or to me or whatever. So doom and gloom, the doom and gloom of having to be nothing and have this transparent gaze. There's nothing wrong with that either. I have videos, definitely have videos like that, and there will be more videos like that, or more moments like that, of just empty looking and just emptiness, because this is emptiness and fullness together somehow, simultaneously. This is emptiness acting as fullness, but it doesn't mean that the fullness is any less real, because it's like a part of the act. It's a part of what's apparent. So the emptiness and fullness are just as real as they are, and just as real. Like, they're both just as real, if you want to call it that. They have to be. Again, no opposite truly exists without the other. So even the opposite of emptiness or non-existence or nothing exists doesn't exist without there being an existence. This is one. Singularness and noneness. Acting as allness or differentness or whatever. It's still all one, totally inescapable, no matter what is happening. Totally inescapable, no matter what's happening. So kicking and screaming against this message of no self doesn't make no self any less real, if that makes sense. And then trying to realize no self, trying to run towards it and get it, doesn't make self any less real. Both real and not real at the same time, happening at the same time. And the funny thing is, when you create that distance almost in both those scenarios or whatever, well, that's already distance, that's already somewhere to get, whether it's farther or closer or whatever. And it's all right here happening right now, so there's no exclusion from already this. Here's the thing, I guess it's all about, some people focus on the nothing, some people focus on the everything, some people focus on the separate self. It doesn't matter ultimately, you guys know, mumbo jumbo. But I would say here, there's a everything. So there's maybe a focus on everything. Okay? It's not saying that nothing, the true reality is that nothing exists. I'm not denying that. But I'm also not denying that there's separateness appearing at all. And that the separateness should ever stop appearing, or that the separateness is any less a part of infinity playing out the appearance of separateness. I won't deny it. I won't get, maybe I have, I don't know, but it just feels, whatever. It's a part of infinity. I'm trying to do an infinity symbol. But it's knowing the separateness is an illusion, and that truthfully, I know it's illusory, and that truthfully, it's, everything wants to survive. Every separate thing wants to survive. It wants to be infinite, it wants to be eternal, it wants to, it wants happiness, and I think happiness is a sense of eternity. There's not really a sense of time, and you're just happy with how things are. When you're depressed, when you're anxious, when you're, whatever, you do have a sense of time, and you want an ending. You feel like you're on a timeline for real. When you're happy, there's not really a sense of that. It's just enjoying the moment and whatever. So everybody wants that. The separate self wants that. It's wanting that when it doesn't feel like it has it. It has to go get to it. It wants eternity found in happiness, happiness found in eternity, and no separate illusion, separate projection. It's not all projections, this whole thing is the projection. There's not one projection, but there's not two projections, I should say. There is one projection, but that eternity is found in knowing that you're either, perspective, there's either believing that you're the separate thing and there's another thing. There's me and there's fence. There's me and there's green. There's me and there's sidewalk. And that those are really separate things happening. There's me and there's tapping. That's a separate action that happened or something. Aside from dabbing my chin. There's believing that, and there's really believing that, and living out life that way. And then there is acknowledging that it appears to be happening, but believing that the I is the whole. So when you believe that the I is the this, trapped in here, experiencing things, drinking in an experience, filtering it through this center that you think is you. There's that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That just happens, okay? It happens, and there's really nothing wrong. It's still a part of this. And then, it's all a contradiction. And then there is believing you're the whole, which is all of that is just a part of this, and I am not a center. I am not whatever. This is just happening, and this is oneness coming from noneness, but you don't have to really, we can't even define the noneness apart from the oneness. So like being like ultimately none. Cool, whatever, but you can't define that apart from the apparent oneness, the projection. The none and the projection are one together. And truly we don't know anything. There's no answer. So to say anything is futile, and it doesn't get anywhere. But heaven is the one, and you're never in one or the other. Heaven isn't the escape from hell. It's not this escape from the apparent character and your apparent problems and your apparent reality and your preferences and your sense of a self. That is still that. It's just not ultimate, and there's a sense that can almost be sensed above that. But it doesn't mean that what's below that, subjectively, level speaking, which, I can't say anything, I don't know anything. It doesn't mean that the level below that of separateness is, just stops appearing or whatever. This is still just as much a part of it. Always has been, and it always will be. So the name hell gets a bad rap, but truly it's inseparable. It is inseparable from heaven. No opposite without the other. Inseparable. So why not have fun? Why not have fun? You could be no one and a statue whenever you want. I mean, you don't have to do anything. This isn't even a suggestion. But this is still a part of this, so